What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to multiply irrational expressions, right? Now, this is the same exact concept as just multiplying just normal fractions together, okay? So if I had something like 5/3 times 1/2, how would you multiply this together? Well, you would just multiply straight across, right? So I do 5 times 1, and that's equal to 5. And then on the bottom, we'd have 3 times 2, which is equal to 6, right? So we'd have just simply 5/6, right? So you treat these the exact same way. You just multiply straight across, right? So you're just going to multiply the top together. So then on top, let's just write everything out, okay? So let's, and this is the key point, split everything up into its factors, okay? So first of all, 2x, that's the same thing as 2 times x, right? And then we're multiplying that, right? We're multiplying by this other term right here, 6xy, right? So times 6 times x times y. So that's what we have on top. Now let's multiply the bottom together. So here we have 3y squared. So first of all, we have 3 times, and then y squared, that's the same thing as y times y, right? So times y times y. And then we're going to multiply that by this other term, x cubed y. So here, this is the same thing as x times x times x, right? We have 3 x's, and then just a single y, right? So x times x times x, and then the single y. Okay, so now, in order to simplify this right here, all you need to know is if you ever have the exact same thing in the top and bottom of a fraction, okay, it could be numbers or variables, it doesn't matter, they work the same way, they cancel out. Okay, they basically kill each other. Okay, so what can we cancel out here? Well, let's see, we have an x right there, so that means this x is going to kill one of the x's down here, okay? We have another x up here, that's going to kill one of the x's down here, okay? And we also have a y up here, and that's going to kill one of the y's down here. Okay, so what are we left with? Well, on top we have a 2 and a 6, right? And we're still just multiplying, okay? So we have 2 times 6 on top. And on the bottom, we have a 3, we have a y, we have an x, and this other y, right? So we have a 3, we have a y, we have an x, and another y. Now, there's a couple ways we can finish simplifying this. The first one is realizing, hey, we didn't split everything up into its factors, right? Because 6, I can also rewrite that as 2 times 3, right? So here, instead of writing times 6, I could write this as times 2 times 3. Okay, and then when you rewrite the 6 like that, you're going to notice, hey, I have a 3 on top and on the bottom. So those are going to kill each other. Okay, so now when I simplify this, on top, all we're going to have is 2 times 2, which is 4. And on the bottom, all we're going to be left with is this single x, and we have 2 y's, right? Which we can write as y squared, right? So then that would be your final answer right there. Okay, so that's one way you can simplify it. The other way is we could have left the 6 right there. We could have said 2 times 6 on top, and on the bottom we still have the 3 times y times x times y, okay? And then you could just multiply this out. So on top we'd have 2 times 6, which is 12, and on the bottom we'd have 3x and then the 2 y's, so still y squared, okay? But then 12 and 3, those can reduce, right? So 12 over 3, that's the same thing as 4 over 1, right? So then here we would simply have 4 over 1xy squared, okay? But we have a leading coefficient of 1 here, so we actually don't really have to write that in. But you'd still get the exact same answer, right? You'd get 4 over xy squared. So same thing as right there, okay? So those are the two different ways you can do it. Pick your favorite, stick with it, love it, and you'll do great things with it, right? Let's try one last example. Okay, so here is our next example. Okay, so again, in order to multiply these two together, all you have to do is multiply straight across, right? And again, you have to split it up into its factors, just like we did in the first problem. Okay, so here, 2x, that's the same thing as 2 times x. And then here, x squared minus 9, well, again, we have to split this up into its factors, right? We can't just put this as times x squared minus 9, right? These are not the factors. Okay, so with that being said, how would you factor x squared minus 9? Well, you might notice that x squared, that is a perfect square, and 9 right here, this is also a perfect square, right? And then we're subtracting right here, so we have a difference of squares, which should definitely be a case that you're familiar with because you're going to see stuff like this all the time, right? So if you have no idea what that is, I'll link a video to that in the card above. But basically, in order to factor this, it would simply be x plus 3 times x minus 3, okay? Because all you do is take the square root of each of these, right? The square root of x squared is just x, the square root of 9 is just 3, and then you would simply split it up as x plus 3, x minus 3, right? That's how you factor that. Okay, cool. So we multiplied out all the factors on the top right here, right? They're listed right there. Now let's do the same thing here on the bottom. So again, we just multiply straight across, right? So here we have x squared plus 7x plus 12. So again, I can't just write that like that. I have to split it up into its factors. Okay, so to factor the bottom right here, you can see it's a trinomial, right? We have a leading coefficient of 1, so we can factor this by splitting it up into two sets of parentheses. Here I have an x squared, so I can put an x there and an x there. And then to figure out the numbers right here, all you have to do is look at the last number right here. So we have positive 12, right? So what two numbers can I multiply together to get positive 12? Okay, but when you add them up, they also have to add up to this middle number, positive 7. Well, that would be a positive 3 and a 4, right? Because 3 times 4, that's equal to 12, and 3 plus 4, that's equal to 7, right? So these are the two numbers you're going to plug in. So positive 3, positive 4. Okay, so that's what goes down here. X plus 3 and x plus 4. Okay, and then we're going to multiply it by this other term right here, 6x squared. And we can split that up into 6 times x times x. Okay, or if you remember from the last problem, this 6, we can split it up into 2 times 3, right? So let's do that. 2 times 3. And then we have our 2 x's at the end, right? So times x times x. Okay, so who wants to kill who? Well, first of all, starting with the top, we have a 2 on the top and we have a 2 on the bottom, right? So those kill each other. We have 1x on top, so it's going to kill one of the x's on the bottom. And then on top, we have an x plus 3 in parentheses, and we have an x plus 3 in parentheses on the bottom, right? So those kill each other. And do we have anything else? I think that's it, right? So then what are we left with? Well, on top, we're just left with this x minus 3, and on the bottom, we're left with this x plus 4, this 3, and this x, right? So we're going to write it as 3x, and then in parentheses, x plus 4. Okay, so then that right there would be your final answer. So if you found the video helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any other questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below. Also, there's a couple playlists attached that I think you'll find helpful, so definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.